My study partner closed the textbook, said experience teaches faster exam week gay romance. The library was eerily quiet that evening, save for the occasional rustle of pages and the soft tapping of keyboards. It was that dreaded time of year again, exam week, when the campus transformed into a battlefield of sleep-deprived students armed with highlighters and coffee thermoses. I was among them, hunched over a mountain of textbooks in the far corner of the third floor, my favorite spot because of the large window that overlooked the campus quad. The rain tapped gently against the glass, creating a soothing backdrop to my increasingly frustrated sighs. I'm Alex, by the way, 21, junior year, double majoring in literature and history because apparently I enjoy making my life unnecessarily complicated. My friends describe me as meticulously organized to the point of neurosis, which I consider a compliment even though they don't mean it as one. My color-coded study schedules and tab textbooks have gotten me this far with a near-perfect GPA, and I wasn't about to let medieval literature ruin that streak. That's when Jamie walked in, 15 minutes late to our study session as usual, with 2 large coffees and that effortless smile that somehow made tardiness forgivable. Jamie and I had been friends since freshman orientation, when we were randomly paired for a campus scavenger hunt. While I had meticulously plotted the most efficient route between landmarks, Jamie had suggested we follow our instincts instead. Surprisingly, we finished third, beating all the other teams who had actual plans. It was the beginning of an unlikely friendship. "You look like you're contemplating a crime," Jamie said, sliding one of the coffees toward me. "Let me guess, Professor Harrington's exam has you questioning your life choices." I groaned in response, gesturing to the open textbook. How am I supposed to remember the significance of every symbolic reference in the Canterbury Tales? There are hundreds. Jamie dropped into the chair across from me, rain droplets still clinging to dark curls. Unlike me, Jamie approached studying with a casual confidence that I both envied and found infuriating. No color-coded notes, no elaborate study guides, just an uncanny ability to absorb information through what appeared to be osmosis. "You're overthinking it," Jamie said, leaning forward to glance at my notes. "You've been staring at these pages for what, 3 hours now? And you're still on the same section you texted me about earlier." I felt a defensive retort forming, but Jamie wasn't wrong. I had been spinning my wheels, reading the same passages repeatedly without making progress. The caffeine from my previous coffee had transformed from helpful stimulant to anxiety amplifier, and my hands had a slight tremor as I reached for the fresh cup. "We've been friends for almost 3 years now," Jamie continued, "and every exam week is the same. You lock yourself away, stress yourself to the breaking point, and still ace everything. But at what cost? You look terrible." "Thanks," I muttered, though I knew it was true. The dark circles under my eyes had reached raccoon proportions, and I couldn't remember my last proper meal. What happened next would change everything between us, though I didn't realize it at the time. Jamie reached across the table and gently closed my textbook. "What are you doing?" I protested, immediately trying to reopen it. "I need to finish this chapter tonight." Jamie's hand remained firmly on the cover. "Experience teaches faster than any textbook, Alex. Let's get out of here." "Are you insane? The exam is in 3 days." "Exactly, 3 days. And you're burning yourself out on day 1. Jamie's eyes held mine, steady and certain. "Trust me on this. 2 hours away from these books will reset your brain. We'll come back, and you'll absorb twice as much in half the time." I should have argued more. I should have insisted on sticking to my carefully crafted study schedule. Instead, I found myself packing up my things, something about the conviction in Jamie's voice making it impossible to refuse. The rain had slowed to a drizzle as we left the library, the campus glowing under the streetlights. Jamie led the way, seemingly unbothered by the damp air that was playing havoc with my carefully straightened hair. "Where exactly are we going?" I asked, hurrying to keep pace. "The medieval literature exhibit at the University Museum closes next week. Have you been yet?" I stopped walking. "You're taking me to see more medieval literature? How is that a break?" Jamie turned, walking backward with a grin. "Because looking at illuminated manuscripts and actual artifacts from the period will make those stories come alive in ways your textbook never could. Context, Alex. It's all about context." The museum was nearly empty, which wasn't surprising given the hour and the fact that most students were either studying or sleeping. Jamie spoke briefly with the security guard, who nodded and waved us through despite the late hour. I made a mental note to ask about that apparent friendship later. "How many times have you been here?" I asked as Jamie confidently navigated through the exhibits. "Enough to know my way around," came the cryptic reply. "Here we are." The medieval literature exhibit was tucked away in a quiet corner of the museum, a series of glass cases containing manuscripts and artifacts. What caught my attention immediately was the large reproduction of a page from an illuminated manuscript of the Canterbury Tales. "Look at the details in these illustrations," Jamie said, voice dropping to a reverent whisper. "Each character from the tales is depicted exactly as Chaucer described them. See the wife of Bath here? Notice the gap in her front teeth, her scarlet stockings, her bold expression." I leaned closer, suddenly seeing the character in a way my textbook descriptions hadn't captured. "She looks real." Exactly. These weren't just characters in a story. They represented types of people Chaucer encountered in his society. The whole point of the Canterbury Tales was to create this cross-section of medieval life through these pilgrims. For the next hour, Jamie guided me through the exhibit, pointing out details I might have overlooked, connecting artifacts to specific passages in the text. What struck me most wasn't just the information, much of which I'd read before, but the way Jamie presented it, with genuine enthusiasm and insight. "How do you know all this?" I finally asked as we paused before a display of medieval writing implements. Jamie shrugged, a slight flush coloring those cheeks. "I actually love this stuff. I just don't love the way it's taught sometimes, reduced to memorization and analysis that drains all the life out of it." "But you never seem to study," I said, unable to keep the accusation from my voice. "I study differently," Jamie corrected gently. "I come here. I watch documentaries. I find the connections between what we're learning and the world around us. Information sticks better when it's attached to something tangible, something that matters to you personally." As we continued through the exhibit, I began to see the Canterbury Tales not as an intimidating text to be analyzed, but as a vibrant, human story, a road trip narrative filled with complex characters and social commentary that felt surprisingly relevant. Jamie's approach was bringing the material to life in ways my highlighters and note cards never had. When we finally left the museum, the night air had turned chilly and the campus had grown quieter. Instead of returning to the library as promised, Jamie suggested we grab a late dinner at the 24-hour cafe just off campus. "I'm not hungry," I protested weakly, though my stomach immediately betrayed me with an audible growl. "Your body disagrees," Jamie laughed, gently steering me toward the cafe. "Besides, I want to tell you about the connections between Chaucer's partner and modern televangelists. It'll blow your mind." The cafe was warm and inviting, with just a few other students scattered among the tables, most wearing the same exam week exhaustion I felt. We found a booth in the back corner, and Jamie ordered for both of us grilled cheese sandwiches and tomato soup, comfort food that reminded me of childhood sick days spent on the couch with my mom. As we ate, Jamie continued making connections between medieval literature and contemporary culture, drawing parallels I'd never considered. I found myself engaged, asking questions, even arguing points, actually enjoying a discussion about material I'd been dreading hours earlier. "See, this is studying too," Jamie said, dipping a corner of sandwich into the soup. "You're making connections, thinking critically, engaging with the material instead of just trying to memorize it." "It's different," I admitted, "but I still need to know specific references for the exam." "And you will. But now you have context for those references. They're not just isolated facts to memorize. They're part of a bigger picture that makes sense to you." I studied Jamie across the table, seeing my friend in a new light. The casual attitude toward academics that I'd always interpreted as laziness suddenly looked more like a different, and possibly more effective, approach to learning. "Why did you agree to be my study partner if you think my methods are so flawed?" I asked. Jamie looked down, stirring the remaining soup absently. "Because I like spending time with you, even when you're being neurotic about color-coding your notes." Something in the way Jamie said it made my heart beat a little faster. We'd been friends for years, comfortable in our routine of banter and mutual support, but there had always been moments, fleeting glances, lingering touches, that hinted at something more. I'd attributed it to my imagination, to the intensity of close friendship. I like spending time with you too, I said carefully, watching Jamie's expression. Even when you're disrupting my carefully planned study schedule. Jamie looked up, a smile spreading slowly. Especially then, I hope. The air between us felt charged suddenly, filled with unspoken possibilities. I was acutely aware of how close our hands were on the table, just inches apart. It would be so easy to bridge that gap, to acknowledge whatever this tension was that had been building between us. Before I could decide what to do, Jamie's phone buzzed with a text. The moment shattered as Jamie checked the message, frowning slightly. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Yeah, just my roommate locked himself out again." Jamie sighed, typing a quick response. "I should probably head back soon to let him in." We finished our meal in a strange new silence, both seemingly aware that something had shifted between us. As we walked back toward campus, our conversation returned to safer topics: classes, mutual friends, plans for the upcoming break. But I couldn't shake the feeling that we were both circling around what had almost happened at the cafe. The next day, I found myself back in the library, but my approach had changed. Instead of mechanically highlighting passages, I was making connections, thinking about the characters and themes in relation to what Jamie had shown me at the museum. When Jamie arrived for our scheduled study session, I had already made more progress than the previous day. "You look better," Jamie observed, setting down another peace offering of coffee. "Less like you're plotting murder." "I feel better," I admitted. "Your museum trick worked." I've been remembering details I couldn't keep straight before. Jamie's smile was equal parts proud and pleased. "Told you. Experience teaches faster." We settled into studying, but something was different now. I was acutely aware of Jamie in a way I hadn't been before. The way dark hair fell across one eye when concentrating, the slight furrow of brow when puzzling through a difficult passage, the unconscious habit of tapping a pen against pursed lips while thinking. Had Jamie always been this attractive? Or was I just noticing now because of our almost moment at the cafe? The next few days followed a similar pattern. We'd study together, taking breaks to visit relevant exhibits or watch short documentaries Jamie had found. Each session was productive but also charged with unspoken tension. Our hands would brush reaching for the same book. Our eyes would meet and linger a moment too long. Our conversations would drift toward personal topics before one of us would steer them back to safer academic ground. By the night before the exam, I felt prepared in a way I never had before. I understood the material not just as facts to be memorized, but as a rich tapestry of interconnected ideas. Jamie's approach had worked, just as promised. We were in my dorm room for our final review session, sitting on my bed with books and notes spread around us. My roommate was staying at her girlfriend's place, giving us the rare luxury of privacy. The storm that had been threatening all day had finally arrived, rain lashing against the windows as thunder rumbled in the distance. "I think you're ready," Jamie said, closing a notebook. "You know this material better than anyone in the class." "Thanks to you," I said sincerely. "Your unorthodox methods actually worked. Does this mean you'll trust me next time I tell you to close your textbook?" I laughed, leaning back against my pillows. "Maybe. Depends on what alternative you're offering." Jamie's eyes met mine, and the tension that had been building between us all week seemed to crystallize in that moment. "I might have some ideas." My heart was racing suddenly, and I was very aware of how close we were sitting, how easy it would be to lean forward, to finally acknowledge what had been growing between us. "Jamie," I started, not entirely sure what I was going to say. A crack of thunder shook the building, and the lights flickered once, twice, then went out completely, plunging the room into darkness. "Perfect timing," Jamie muttered, voice closer than I expected. I fumbled for my phone, turning on the flashlight. The beam caught Jamie's face, those expressive eyes looking at me with an intensity that made my breath catch. "We should probably find some candles," I said, though I made no move to get up. "Probably," Jamie agreed, also staying perfectly still. In the strange, intimate darkness, with only my phone's light between us, it felt easier somehow to be brave. "The other night, at the cafe, was there something you wanted to say? Or do?" Jamie was quiet for a long moment, and I worried I'd misread everything. Then, softly, "Yes. But I wasn't sure if you felt the same way." "I do," I whispered, surprised by my own certainty. "I think I have for a while now." Jamie reached out slowly, taking my phone and setting it down so the light created a soft glow around us rather than between us. Then, with the same gentle deliberation, Jamie's hand found mine in the semi-darkness. "Is this okay?" The question was barely audible over the ring. In answer, I leaned forward, closing the distance between us. Our first kiss was tentative, questioning, a hypothesis being tested. The second was more confident, a theory confirmed. By the third, we had moved beyond the realm of academic metaphors entirely. When the lights came back on some time later, we barely noticed, too absorbed in this new discovery, this shift from friendship to something more. It felt both surprising and inevitable, like a conclusion that had been waiting for us to reach it all along. The next morning, we walked to the exam together, both of us more relaxed than exam day usually found us. Before we entered the classroom, Jamie squeezed my hand. "You've got this," Jamie said with a confidence I now shared. "Just remember, experience teaches faster than textbooks." I finished with a smile. "I won't forget." As I took my seat for the exam, I realized that the most important lesson I'd learned during our study sessions had nothing to do with medieval literature. Jamie had taught me that sometimes the most valuable experiences come when you close the book and open yourself to unexpected possibilities, in learning and in life. The exam, by the way, was the easiest I'd ever taken. It turned out that understanding the material was indeed more effective than merely memorizing it. And afterward, as Jamie and I celebrated with coffee at our now-favorite cafe, I couldn't help but think that this exam week had taught me more than I ever expected, about literature, about learning, and about love. 2 weeks later, our grades were posted. We both aced the exam, of course, but by then, we were already planning our next adventure, a road trip inspired by the Canterbury Tales, visiting historical sites related to medieval literature. Jamie insisted it would be helpful for our final paper. I suspected it was just an excuse for us to spend more time together, away from campus. I didn't mind. After all, experience teaches faster than textbooks. And this was one lesson I was eager to continue learning. Total _char_count, 18,812.